Hey guys, welcome back to Andy's Dinosaur Reviews. Today we are going to take a look at the second to last of the 2021 Collecta releases, and this is the Pravitoceras, and I apologize if I did say the name incorrectly. I'm actually very unfamiliar with the species. I don't know too much about it, but now that Collecta has introduced a figure here, I'm definitely quite interested to learn more, so I'll be researching the species very soon to inquire further about, more about the species in general, because again, I like to know as much as I can. Of course, just in general, any type of prehistoric creature out there, I'm always intrigued to learn more, and since I was totally unaware of the species prior to this release, I again will definitely be researching it in the future. But as far as this figure goes, I think it is a really beautiful looking figure overall. Very nice, very appealing looking paint scheme to it, as Collecta released quite a few different aquatic species last year, so this almost feels like this figure could have or should have been a part of last year's line, because they released quite a few. There was like 4 or 5 different really cool aquatic species that they had released last year in the 2020 line, but this is the only Ammonite that we've had released this year, and again, it looks really, really nice. So let's go ahead, get a closer look at it right now. So straight away, one very appealing area to the animal would be the eyes, and I think the eyes are painted really nicely. You can see that primarily they're painted with like a very light yellow and then given a black pupil, and they do sport a pretty nice gloss coat to them, so they do shine quite realistically, although the animal, being an aquatic species, would of course be under the water. So in general, the entire figure kind of should, I think, have a little bit of a glossy look to it, but it still looks quite nice even without it. As far as the coloration goes, up here you can see that it's basically an orange coloration, and they've actually dry brushed like a gray in certain areas to make some of that detail pop, and you can see that as we move throughout the figure. Take a look at the different areas of like the tentacles and stuff, and you can see that it's again been really nicely dry brushed. Actually, you can see quite a bit of it back here, but basically just to give it, a little alternate color variation, bring a little realism to the figure, and I think they've achieved that quite nicely. As far as the actual paint application, you can see in general that the sculpt is really nicely done. You can see lots of beautiful texturing to the animal as we move down into the tentacles. Unfortunately, we do have the Collecta logo and then the species name and everything up here, right front and center on the figure, and that was kind of one of the slight downsides, I'd say, to the figures as far as these kind of aquatic species, the ammonites and stuff, from last year, but it's not that big of a deal. I just feel like if there was an area to kind of hide them a little better, it definitely would have looked nicer, maybe here on the shell or something, but regardless, it is what it is. I still think the figure looks really nice either way. If you get here on the underside, you can see the really nice detailing here to the underside of the tentacles, as well as the kind of mouth-like area down here, the beak-like area, I guess you could say. It's painted with a nice white coloration, and then down there in that area, it's actually been given a little bit of a grayish or like a blackish coloration, just a very slight hint of it down there, so that it, again, differentiates itself from the rest of the figure, but just gives it a little more color variation. Then once we actually move up into the shell area, you can see that we start to get this really cool purple and white striping effect, and that runs the course of the entire shell, as the shell does have quite the flashy appearance to it. But again, it's something I could definitely see this animal being. An animal like this could without question have an appearance like this. I also forgot to mention that the eye is painted quite nicely over here on this side, just like we had seen on the previous side. But the actual detailing to the shell is all beautifully done. There is actually no color variation at all aside from the white and purple though, so there's not really too much going on out here, but there really doesn't need to be. I feel like what is included is pretty much perfect for this type of an animal, and the paint application does appear to be applied really quite nicely overall. Looks pretty consistent throughout the entire figure and is nicely applied. It looks nice and natural on the figure overall. And that's pretty much it. There's really not too much to look at as far as this animal goes, but what we do have here does look really, really good. And overall, it's yet another incredible figure for the 2021 line from Collecta. The only thing that can sometimes be a little bit of a downside as far as these figures go is finding a way to actually balance them in a natural fashion. Originally, I had it sitting like this, which isn't exactly a natural position for the animal, and that's just because I was using the tentacles to hold it up. I didn't realize that you could could actually set it down like this and it would stand, and it actually stays like that quite nicely. So that's definitely an aspect of this figure that was improved upon compared to some of the ones from last year. Definitely really like that. It can actually balance now. But as far as a size goes, for a length, you are going to see it at about 3 3/4 inches, or around the 9.5 centimeter range. And then for a height, about 3 inches, actually, just about 3 inches, or about the 7.5 centimeter range, closing in on 8 centimeters. For a size comparison, there is Mr. Papo T-Rex, the Attack Pack Colovosaurus, and Robert Muldoon from the Mattel Jurassic World toy line next to our Collecta 2021 Pravitoceras. And you can definitely see in comparison to these guys that this figure sports a pretty decent size overall. It's nothing overly huge. It's nothing that's even remotely small. I would say it's a pretty good-sized medium overall, and I think it actually is pretty much a perfect size for a species like this. It's really nice and striking in the size department, but it's nothing that's overly large or unreasonably small, so definitely a really good size as far as I'm concerned. So this Collecta 2021 Pravitoceras is a really nice looking figure, and again, I do apologize if I said the name wrong. I'm really unfamiliar with the species, so I may be pronouncing the name incorrectly, but as far as the figure goes, it is gorgeous. It really is. Every single Collecta figure for the 2021 year, in my opinion, has been absolutely incredible, and this one is absolutely no exception. And being a Pravitoceras, it's a species that personally I have never seen get a figure before. Again, it's one of those instances where maybe Kyoto has made one at some point and I'm just unaware of it, but as far as kind of like the more mainstream dinosaur companies and prehistoric animal companies go, I've never seen one created. So as usual, Collecta picking a very obscure species and creating it in figure form for us to finally have one in our collections, and I am always super appreciative of the fact that Collecta does that. They really kind of go for the more obscure most times with a little bit of the more common sprinkled in, and this is definitely, in my opinion, one of the more obscure. And in general, it's nice to have quite a few different variations of Ammonites because we really don't have that many out there at all, so it's nice to see this one getting a figure as well, and I think Collecta has done a tremendous job on it overall. They've sculpted every aspect to the figure as much as they possibly can, sporting some really nice detail throughout, beautiful textured appearance in the skin areas, really nice texturing to the shell, gorgeous paintwork all over it, allowing a really nice flashy look, but definitely something that I could see on an animal like this, so it's a really nice natural appearance, if you ask me, on top of that flashy look. So they really did, in my opinion, they created a beautiful figure, and on top of all of that, they've managed to give it the ability to actually balance out now this year in comparison to some of the figures from last year, which is even more exciting because that was probably the only takeaway that I could think of that was a downside from the figures from last year, would be the lack of balance for them, and this one here definitely has corrected that issue. It balances quite nicely, which I didn't even figure out until halfway through the review, because again, I just pulled the figure out of the box, brought it up here to take a look at with you guys, so I didn't really have any time to check it out prior to this. So again, really awesome in every aspect. Honestly, it is an incredible figure and a very high recommendation from me as always when it comes to a Collecta figure. So if you are interested in this, make sure you keep checking back to everythingdinosaur.com as the year progresses, because this will definitely be coming into stock on that website very, very soon. So when it does, make sure you pick it up, and otherwise make sure you like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next review. Thanks for watching.